Well, back in 1995, Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum came to New Zealand, and through various means my father was asked if he could host him, and so he came to stay with us back in 1995. In fact, we've got the the old sign on the dotted line book, when people, visitors book, that's the word I was looking for. They have the visitors book and it's still got his entry there. That's how we know. And so yeah, it was interesting because he came to New Zealand. Well, obviously I knew little of him then, but I was always very impressed by his Bible knowledge right from the start. He was obviously had a really in-depth knowledge of the Bible that I'd never really come across before, especially the Old Testament. So it's only fairly recently that I have come onto the board for Ariel New Zealand. So my role is still fairly fresh in that regard, but I have worked with Ariel Ministries collaboratively, even though with a different ministry, for quite a while now, including different events, such as in New Zealand we have a music festival called Festival One, and we both shared a booth at that festival as a ministry, a form of ministry outreach and helping people understand what we do as ministries. So although my official role is only in the last month or so, unofficially I've worked with them on a number of different projects over many years. Ariel Ministries obviously serves two key purposes. One is evangelism, and that's reaching Jewish people, Israelis, with the message of their own Messiah. And secondly also is both Bible teaching and resources from a messianic perspective to help people understand God's plans and purposes for the nation of Israel. So there's evangelism and discipleship effectively. Sure, obviously I came back in 2014 to this camp for the first time, and was there that I came across Life of Messiah. So that's a resource that both myself and another board member, Matthew Lord, are using to teach people about the messianic perspective on the Gospels. We're doing that currently in two different churches in Wellington. So as a resource, a lot of people are really amazed by the content. They've never heard much of the content before, which was the same response I had when I first came across it. It was just amazing as to how little I'd actually come across, given that I've been a believer for most of my life. I was quite amazed by how much of it was just a really different way of looking at things and understanding nuances that were often just overlooked by other people. So their resources, I find their resources cover topics often not covered by others, and to a depth that others seldom ever reach. So, there's lots of ways to be involved in a ministry such as Ariel Ministries. I guess you can go to the website, for instance, and you can look at the details there. That would then lead you to contact people like in New Zealand, Johan van Vuren, who will be able to put you in touch either with local interest groups or churches who may have an interest in Israel, and from there be able to help understand where God may want you to fit in to His plans and purposes within New Zealand. Well, primarily because God told me to. My story goes back to being a child. My father is full-time minister to the Jewish people and has been since the early 70s. So I grew up in a home where at the age of sort of 7, 8, 9 and so on, he would run Messianic Passovers pretty much every year, and sometimes I would go with him as he went around churches, and I would do maybe half a dozen to a dozen a year. So by the time I became a young adult, I'd already done a lifetime of Passovers, which is very strange for a Gentile because we're Gentiles. Plus he also did a number of other Jewish feasts, and all of these provided an extensive background which, as I grew older, I understood that at some stage it was very likely God was going to tap me on the shoulder and say, there was a reason I gave you that. And I wasn't surprised when He called me into the ministry in a parallel sense to my father and what he's been doing. I always had that underlying suspicion that that would be the case, given that what I've received was quite unusual, and especially for a Gentile, and so therefore Why I'm doing what I'm doing is because I understood that God had prepared that way, prepared that path, and so I was being obedient to Him and wanting obviously to glorify Him, and this is the way He's chosen for me to do that. So, I currently work for a ministry called Celebrate Messiah New Zealand. This was founded about a decade ago by Scott Brown, who happens to be a Messianic believer from the States. And God called him to move from a country with 5 million Jewish people to a country which is more like to have 5 million sheep, which would appear to be an odd thing to do, and not that many Jewish people, and to purchase a property 45 minutes inland in the remote area of from Oamaru in New Zealand, middle of nowhere, a place called Dancy's Pass, and to buy a property there to start reaching Israelis, which seems crazy. However, it seems, as he would say, that Israelis still get lost even today, because it wasn't long before he had 200 to 250 Israelis coming each year to stay at this property. And so he realized that this was God pointing him in the direction of outreach through hospitality evangelism. And since then they've purchased another property in a very high interest area, which is Wanaka, and currently they are reaching close to 1,500 Israelis with the message of their own Messiah each year. So my role in that is basically I'm in the North Island, and my job is to communicate what's happening, what God is doing in the South Island to churches throughout the North Island, so that they have some opportunity to be part of this, whether prayerfully or whether financially, that's up to them as the Lord leads. But ultimately so that people can be part of blessing Israel and reaching the Israeli people with the message of their own Messiah. To learn more about Celebrate Messiah, then you'd go to their website, which is celebratemessiah.co.nz, and there you'll find lots of information, including a profile of my good self, amongst others, and there you can hopefully get more in-depth information concerning the ministry of Celebrate Messiah in New Zealand.
Hi, I'm Pastor Chuck Reish. I'm the executive producer at Horizon Media Studios. It's a 501c3 media ministry, and what we're doing is helping other ministries tell their story. Homeless shelters and children's homes, Bible colleges, seminaries, mission sending agencies. With your help, we can continue to help tell their story, to inspire the world, to shine their light, and let God get the glory for the work that's being done in advancing the kingdom of Jesus Christ. Thanks again for praying for us.